Hi everyone, it's Dasher Dave here again, back for another crafty video. So today we are going to make one of these. So, well, something similar to this. It's designed to look a bit like it's corroded or acid or it's been burnt, but it's a bit of foil, alcohol ink, and then my faux burning technique in the background, which I haven't done for a long time, and I thought, oh, really fancy doing that. And then I thought, I've got all this foil on my desk from when I did my give a scrap challenge, so I thought, let's make something with the foil that I have. So obviously, if you just want to know the technique for making the burning, make it look like burnt, then you know that's towards the end of the video, whereas we'll start with the metal bit. So okay, so what we're going to need for this is an embossing folder if you want to make the metally bit embossed. If you just want a piece of metal, that's fine, just use some foil. I'm going to use this embossing folder this time. You're going to need some foil, so you can either use sheets of tin foil. I have all of this left over from when I did my give a scrap challenge, so I'm actually going to use one of these, which is just a lid of a jar of coffee, a giant jar of coffee, obviously. So I'm going to use some of that because, well, it gives me that rounded bit at the top, but also it's already done for me. If you're using this, you might want to just stick your sheets together. I might actually cut that, might actually show you what I mean by this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this out so that we have a piece that will go through a embossing folder, and we'll actually do this one as well as that one, and I'll show you what I mean by this. So you would use multiple layers, okay, and the reason why you might want to bond it is because although it kind of pinches it together temporarily, it will start to delaminate after a while. Let me just get all my embossing folder bits. So the last that embossing folder is this one, but I'm going to just do it with a different one this time. Right, I should have my bits from last time. I think, is it those two? Oh, I never know which ones I'm using. Those two maybe. And that. Okay, so first of all, we are going to emboss our metal. So we'll do this. Now, when I say metal, I mean our foil. I'm going to put this through the embossing folder. No, Dave, you have to do it with the handle facing you, because otherwise it makes it very hard. So, just going to run that through. So I'll just move that out of the way temporarily. And so this is what will happen if you do it with foil. So you get that same sort of thing. Although it's, like I say, it's pinched together, you can kind of separate it. So it will start to separate. So I would suggest that before you do it with multiple sheets of foil, you actually glue them together. So before you do that. So like I say, I'm going to make mine with this because I've got it to hand, and well, because I want to. I don't have to explain myself to you. So we're just going to pop that in there, out of the way, and then run this through. So whole idea of this give a scrap challenge was to use scrap rather than using up bits of valuable resources. I might just put an extra bit of a shim in that, just to get it a little bit more definition. Okay, so that should be enough. Let's move that out of the way. Pop that down there. Take this off. And there we go. So that's what we're going to be working with. So the whole point of this is to look like a bit like, a printer's plate. So we're making it look like, you've kind of rescued a printer's plate. So before I cut it all apart, I'm actually just going to leave it all intact first. So the same goes if you were going to use the foil. leave it all intact, and then cut it down afterwards. The other thing we're going to use is we're going to use alcohol ink to do the foil with. So obviously alcohol ink is quite staining. It's also not very good for your fingers because alcohol strips away your natural oil, so you don't want to be stripping away your natural oils, do you? So I'm going to do it on this. You don't obviously, you just use your craft mat. I'm doing it on this so that you can see. I think the foil stands out better on here than it does on here, so it's just a preference. So what colours you use is entirely up to you. Last time, this one, I used black, I used slate grey, I used a bit of sandal, I used a bit of oregano as well, or oregano, depending on who you are or where you cometh from. So I've got some separate daubers that I use for my alcohol inky stuff, so I don't worry about keeping colours separate. It's alcohol ink. I'm not worried. If you want a pure colour, then obviously you'll need separate pads for separate colours, but I just use one pad for a darker one for a lighter, one for the black, one for the dark mid colours, and then one for like more colourful colours, which is that one there. So what I did was I started with some slate grey, and I put that onto my thing. Now this might reactivate the black that was on here before, so it might come out a little bit darker. So basically I'm putting a base on it, and the reason for that is you want to be able to create these kind of cells in it. It needs to be some colour in the background to form the cell onto. I am going to put some black on it with it though as well, and also it looks a little bit more aged if you go in with a bit of a grey colour. Kind of trying to think out what's rattling. Better. Sorry, something was jingling and it was annoying me. So I'm going to use some black now, and you can see it's already got some cells appearing. They're soft cells. So put some black on it, and like you can see the contrast more with the black when you. I kind of want it a bit random, not to not completely cover it in black, otherwise what was the point of putting the slate grey on? I still want those to appear a little bit kind of. If it was completely black, it would just be one solid colour, but like it's got a bit of dimension to it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some of the sandal on. Okay, and this is going on with a different ink pad this time. Not ink pad, dauber, and I'm just going to tap on it in various locations, and you can see it kind of forms that cell. I need actually a bit more ink on it. And you're making it look a bit corroded, really. That's what you're trying to aim for. I might use some other colours actually on here. And you just use whatever colours you like, to be fair. Have a bit more of, maybe go for this one this time. This one is another colour, butterscotch. Oh, I could just eat some butterscotch. You see how it forms that kind of cell structure, which is basically what ink does when not ink, sorry, metal does when it's burnt. Well, sometimes metal when you burn it, and you want to make sure you go up to the edge as well, because you do. And then I'm going to use a bit of the oregano or oregano. Just to kind of make it a little bit more colour to it. You don't want to go too colourful because like it's not colourful. Put a bit more of the black in. Not black, sorry, the grey. The black will kind of obliterate what you've already done. Whereas the grey will kind of just mingle better. And you don't want it to be too covered. It's not, you know, you're not trying to make it a Dalmatian. Oh, what? Which colour? Which one's got what? Oh, I don't know. It shouldn't matter too much. So I'm going to leave that there, and then what you're going to do is you just want to set it aside for a few minutes to let it dry. Okay, so I would definitely recommend you wear gloves, like I say, because you don't want alcohol ink on your fingers. Okay, so I'm just going to set that aside to dry. So as you can see, it's a very similar kind of thing, and you're just going to let it dry, and it might spread a little more. If you want to kind of fix it, then I would suggest that you use some like dry it with a heat gun, but I'm not worried about that. So I'm going to keep that piece, might as well. So what I mounted it onto is just some white card. I actually took two pieces and glued them together, which is what I'm going to do now. Just took some white card, approximately the same size as your file folder, which is not that one, is it, Dave? That's that one. So I took it and made it approximately the same size, so I'll go up to this edge. And I made it taller than, so that you've got a bit of definition top and bottom. Also, you'll be saying, well, the file folder is wider than the actual pattern, and that's fine, because you see here it's kind of got a tram line down either side. You can see it on the back better, where it's squashed this bobbling flat. I'm going to cut it down that edge, but also I want the card to be a bit bigger because you won't see the burnt edge bit. So I'm just going to make the card that we're going to mount it onto a little bit bigger. So I will use a pencil first. Draw a pencil line, and then use a cutter of some kind. I don't care what kind. I could use a blade or a pair of scissors. I don't mind. So I'm just going to cut those bits down. This is, remember, this is a folded over piece of card. The reason I used two layers is because it gives it a bit more definition. You've got like a multi-layer to it. So let's glue it down, and hopefully you'll understand what I mean by that. So let's just glue the two pieces together. So you don't want to go right the way up to the edge, because you want to be able to tear it and leave multiple layers. You could do it with just one layer. It's absolutely fine. It's just me being me. I'm just going to glue those two bits together. Also, I liked the fact that the card was a bit stiffer with the two being glued together, because you've got this metal, you've got that metal, and if it's too thin, it's going to squash the metal flat. You need something to kind of support the embossing on the metal. Okay, probably should take my gloves off now, but so glue these two pieces together. They should be similar sort of size. If they're not the same size, that's fine. Press those two together. Okay, so we've made that bit. Let's move that out of the way. So you need to let the glue dry, which I will when... Oh, Dave. Ah. Ow! Found it. That's it, you just stick it through your finger. So I'm going to take my gloves off for this bit. The gloves are off. Okay, so we've done this, and our glue is drying. It's not going to be completely dry just yet. But what then you want to do is you want to just tear some of the bits off. So remember, you've double layered it, and so it's going to be a bit harder to tear. So you want to just tear some notches into it. So if you're having issues tearing it, or you don't have any nails to kind of just break it, what you can do is, if you have a ripper, you can use that. But if you don't have a ripper, you can just use scissors. Now just be careful when you're doing this, because you don't want to cut any of you off. You just want to cut some of the paper off, and you want it to be, if you have it that kind of floofy edge, that's fine, because we'll make use of that floof and make it look like it's burnt. Things like corners, if you just catch it in the opening of your scissors like that, so hold them a little bit open and catch it in, and rather than cutting it off, you kind of tear them off like that, because corners don't tend to last in fires very well. And you can just use that same technique on, you see how it just tears it out nicely, and it tears it with a bit of a shape. You can leave a few bits in like that, so you're just going to tear it, just give it a bit of a random edge. If you're having rescued it from a fire, it wouldn't tend to have much of this, unless you've got unless you want to do it with just one edge burnt, then you would probably have a bit more of a shape on one bit and less on the other bit. So you have less shape where it's been burnt, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm going to leave that corner, and we'll leave that bit unburnt for some texture, some difference. Vive la différence. I'm not French, but there you go. Cool. So you're just kind of making it look a bit random at the minute now. So I know it looks like it has to look right. It's a bit like tidying up. It has to look a mess before you get to the other side. So any loose bits, just tear them off, unless you're leaving it as a bit like this that we've decided we're going to leave. I'm going to take the very tip off that. You don't want that. Okay, so let's get rid of these floofy bits, because otherwise that'll make me sneeze. And trust me, if I start sneezing, you, even if I turned to my mic off, you'd still be able to hear me. So I'll frighten the life out of people at work. So now what we're going to do is we're now going to ink it. So this is where it's going to get messy, but you're going to be using just distress ink. So with my distress ink, what I do is I start with one of my colours. So I've used on this one, I used ground espresso. I used ground espresso, crusty walnut, no, not crusty walnuts, what's it called, walnut stain, blackfoot soot, and frayed burlap, or not a frayed burlap. So what I started with was some of the walnut stain, so I didn't go in with a dark colour straight away, and I just went round and I'm just making it inky. Now remember, you're not going to see the middle bit, so you don't need to worry about, you know, making the middle bit inky. You're not going to see it. If you find any tiny bits as you go around, just chop them off. And what the whole point of this now is to kind of just make sure that you don't see any white showing through as you go around. So you're putting a base layer down that's going to pick up all of the white and make it a colour. Because as long as it's a dark colour, you won't know whether it's black or not once you put the other colours on. That's what we're going to do. So I'm obviously making a mess of my mat. Now I know I said I wasn't going to do this bit here, and that's fine, but we still want some colour on it because we don't want it to be white. So we want it to look old, but just not burnt. So I'm just going to go around like I say, and then what you want to make sure is you get the back as well. So on the back of mine it looks a bit of a mess, but remember we can always put a bit of journal paper over that for you to be able to journal notes onto. Whilst you're doing this, remember if you do the alcohol ink bit first, that can be drying while you're doing this. Again, we're just going to pick up all of those edges. And you might have to do less of this or more of this depending on how dry or wet your ink pad is. I'm just going to put a little bit through the middle of it as well, just so I don't have any white showing, and then I can choose whether I want to cover it up or leave it as it is. Cool. Okay, so you want to now just go round the edges and make sure you've got all of that white edge. Where you've kind of delaminated it, you'll see that you can see some white. If you break it apart, you can see some white. So you want to just make sure you catch that. As you go around, and you can put as many layers of colour on as you like. But do this bit first, and then it looks a bit more authentic. If you've got a bit of white glaringly obvious on the edge, it doesn't look like it's genuinely burned. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to move to a different colour. I'm going to go to ground espresso. So again, just going around the edges, catching any white bits. If you've got any stubborn white bits, just peel them apart and do it that way. Okay. And this time I'm not going to do this corner because this is the corner we're going to keep as the unburnt bit. This time on that one I didn't bother. Okay, so let's put some more layers down. Then when I went in with my frayed burlap. So this is now mixed with frayed burlap and black soot, so it might come out a bit darker than you're expecting it to. And what I'm doing is I'm just encroaching a little bit. So I'm going over this edge. And I found that if you build it up, it looks better than if you just go in with a dark colour. So, and this is kind of giving you that effect of smoke. So you might get a little bit encroach onto the bit that you haven't you've decided isn't going to be burnt, because smoke travels up the paper and card. It doesn't necessarily set light to it, so we're going to go over it, all of the edges, do them first. So my ink pad is quite juicy. If you can't see any of those white bits still sticking out, then make sure you catch those. And once we've gone round here, so don't worry if you're getting like a straight line here, that's fine. We will come back to that and make sure that that's no longer a straight line in a minute. We just want to go around it first. Okay, so then now this is the bit where you can kind of get rid of that straight line by just creeping into the paper a little bit more, into the edge a bit more, I mean. Don't worry about any swirling, because once we've mounted something over the top of it, you won't see any of that. So I find frayed burlap to be a better colour than lost shadow for this, but you know, if you've only got lost shadow, then give that a go. You might prefer it, and that is absolutely fine. And like I say, I do genuinely find that adding layers of colour is better than just going in with the black soot and just doing it. Yeah, so, and again, you want to make sure it kind of catches that back bit as well. You can encroach a little bit more and a little bit less. If you've watched paper burn, it's not perfectly accurate all the way over it, so you know, you'll get smoke trails that like dribble up the back of it. I don't know much about fire, so I can't really explain what I'm trying to say, but you either know what I'm talking about or you have no idea. I'm just a little bit over that corner that I'm not actually inking. Sorry, I'm not actually burning. You get closer into the middle, you can just bleed that out a little bit more. Okay, so just going to do a little bit more around this edge. Okay, so that one can close. Now we're going to the black soot. Again, this is quite a juicy pad, so I'm just going to go across all of the very tip, and then I can choose to focus on certain areas to make them a bit more burnt looking. So I can just bleed this in now onto the bits. So the bits where you've got an indentation, I would suggest that you kind of just emphasize that by just bringing the black soot into that area. If you see what I mean. So where I've got like this kind of V-shaped indentation, I'm just bringing my black soot in to kind of replicate that shape. To make it look a bit more burnt. Now you don't have to use black soot, because I have done in the past, before I had black soot, I have done it with just lots of layers of brown, and that is absolutely fine. Depending on the type of paper you're using as well. If you're using craft cards, you will tend to find that you don't need the black. So I'm just using the very edge of my doorwood to make it look a little bit more black, or pulling it in rather than the full shape of it pushing into it, just using the very edge of it, like, you know, like you're drawing a line basically. Remember, once we've done this bit, and if you do that, see how I've made a little line there, that was an accidental one. You can leave it, because you know that's how flames go. They're not perfect and they don't travel in the way that you expect them to. So now don't forget to do the back bit, especially if you're gonna, well, if you're gonna glue it down, there's no point doing the back bit because nobody's gonna see it. But if you want to have it as a interactive piece, you know, a card or something like that, then you want to make sure that you get for that authentic look. And I find it much safer than trying to burn card. So if you try to burn the edges, you tend to find that, well, don't do that inside first of all, and also be very careful if you do it. You might find that you burn yourself rather than the card, or the card just kind of ignites and you've lost the whole thing. And I do think, oh well, you know, I'm perhaps I'm biased, but I do think this does look very authentic. Okay, so that's it. So now what we want to do is we want to put our thing down and check that it's not going to be, there's not going to be any white spaces, and if there are, just go in and eradicate the white so that you don't see, you're not going to see that. It's fine if it goes a little bit sooty in areas. That's fine, because you're not going to, you know, you're not going to question it because it's burnt. So it's bound to have got a bit sooty at parts. There we go. So move those out of the way. So hopefully you can see that. Let's bring this white card back in. See how we've got that kind of, and because we've got these tatted bits, you know, some of them will come off. You don't want them on there, but that all adds to the authenticity of it. You know, it looks more burnt. So if you see what I mean. And then what we're going to do is to cut this down, flip it over so that you can see the back bit, the bit that stuck out from the embossing folder. Now if you've cut yours to the shape of your embossing folder, then that's absolutely fine. You don't need to do this step. But I do like to have a bit of an edge where the image doesn't come right up to the edge, because that'll make sure that it sticks flat down and there isn't a raised bit that sticks up that's just going to end up catching and then tearing your metal. So, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to glue this and stick it on. So let's just check that it's going to sit on there. It is. Sit on there nicely, actually. Yep. I do just want to take a bit of alcohol ink, without a safety net, alcohol ink and no safety net, just because I can see a very clean edge now. Just wipe across that edge of metal. So cool. And now we're going to stick this down. So I'm just going to get some glue. So just like when we made the bag seals that I did for the scrap challenge, I'm just going to put a little bit of glue in so from this side this is debossed and on this side it's embossed, in the debossed weld bits, because that will dry solid and stop them from being able to press down, especially if there's a lot of negative space, that it tends to get a bit flattened over time. But you know, it doesn't matter if it's a little bit, but just to keep some definition to the image. So there'll be like little channels, little wells that you're going to put some glue into, and you know, that's fine if it dries now, because we're not actually using that to stick this down with. We're just using that as to give it a bit of dimension. To keep its dimension, that's what I mean. And that way then it's going to look get a little less squashed. And now we can just glue over the rest of it. So making sure that you catch that edge. Down the sides, around that space there, up across the top. Don't worry if you've kind of dented it like I have, that's fine. Don't put too much around the edge, because it's not going to seep in like card. It's going to squeeze out somewhere. So you don't want it to be loads all around the edges, and then when you push it down it all squeezes out. So I'm going to put that on there, put it in the middle. and then we're going to press it down. You want to press it down so it makes contact. You might want to do it that way. So don't press completely, because otherwise you're just going to press your image flat. But you just want to kind of make sure that it makes some contact. Eye to eye contact. Or you can, or the foil to cardboard contact, actually. Before the glue completely dries, you can just move it a little. There you go. So now obviously leave that to dry. You could put a hole in it and make it a tag. But there you go. So that's that. So that's a technique for making it look a little bit old, burnt, however you wish. You know, your results will vary. Mileage may vary, as Nick the Booksmith would say. And that's because, you know, depending on the circumstances of when you apply alcohol ink, warmer spaces, it dries quicker, etc. So, you know, you're never going to get two pieces exactly the same. But, you know, just go and enjoy it, have a play, use up some scrap. Don't go out and buy crafter's foil. You do not need crafter's foil. I can tell you now, in your life you will be exposed to so much foil. Remember, there's lids and rolls of it, and these metal trays. You get so much metal, and you do not need to go and buy it specifically for crafting. We can find pieces to use, and actually, isn't that so much nicer? Isn't that the whole point of junk journaling? So there you go. That's another technique, and I hope you like that. I hope you remember to give this a thumbs up. Don't forget to like and share it if you will, if you think somebody else might enjoy it. Don't forget to subscribe if you aren't already. Don't forget to wash your hands after you've made this, like I'm going to go and do now. And don't forget, there'll be more videos coming up very soon. I put a video out on a Monday, Wednesday and a Friday. And I will see you all in the next video. So my name is Dash of Dave. I love you all without exception until you give me a reason not to. So don't give me a reason not to, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, folks. Go and have a play. All right. Take care. Bye. Big hugs. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.